Every year, about 250,000 young Nigerians graduate from Nigerian universities and colleges. Almost 100,000 of them will end up unemployed based on the current unemployment rate that is above 33%. Chika Nwobi set out to disrupt this status quo by building Decagon, a technology school that will transform intelligent young graduates from any field into software engineers in 6 months. And by doing so, significantly increase their earning potential. Decagon goes even further to find them jobs after their training program.
They pay nothing and then they get admission, they move into our facilities. So it's an in-residence program. So they move in, they live there for 6 months, they're fed, they receive a stipend, health insurance, get training, and then we help them get a job.
In this story of transformation, Decagon founder Chika Nwobi introspectively shares his story of transformation and personal growth. Hello everyone, my name is Nwamaka Okoye and you're welcome to another edition of the Seed Diaries. With me I have a very special guest today, Chika Nwobi, founder and CEO of Decagon. Chika, incidentally, full disclosure, is also my brother. So surprise, Chika, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nwamaka. It's great to be here. Finally on Seed Diaries. Yeah, very excited.
So Chika, tell me a bit about Decagon. What is Decagon? What does Decagon do? And what business problem is it trying to solve?
For sure. So Decagon is a software engineering talent training and staffing business. That means that we started in Nigeria, very focused on Nigeria. And what we basically do is find the smartest people who are usually unemployed or underemployed, just given the Nigerian situation. And we help them over 6 months become world-class software engineers. We've had more than 100,000 people apply. We've produced 1,000 software engineers so far, and it's been amazing.
Wow, 1,000 software engineers. Over what period has this been?
So this is our 4th year.
Okay.
So this is our 4th full year, and we've actually graduated 560, and then we have the difference in the program, and so yeah.
560 people have graduated from the program,
That's
and
correct.
You say you have over 100,000 that have applied.
That's correct.
So how do you decide who those 500 people will be out of 100,000?
Yeah, for sure. So so I think one of the things that's like special or powerful or whatever about the business is what we call merit-based financing, which means that getting into become a decadev, which is what we call our graduates, has nothing to do with your ability to pay. It is a completely like need-blind acceptance process that is really, we're looking for the fastest learners, people who have the propensity to become world-class software engineers, so strong communicators and so on and so forth. So we have a very strong vetting process that really involves training. And so when people apply, we take them through an online training, and we have a whole bunch of metrics that we're looking for. And once they are deemed good enough, then we have a partnership with the Nigerian banks to finance them to pay us. And so, so it's the first of its kind. What the experience for the person is like, most of them are, had been unemployed or were unemployed before they got in. They pay nothing, and then they get admission. They move into our facilities. So it's an in-residence program. So they move in, they live there for 6 months. They're fed, they receive a stipend, health insurance, get training, and then we help them get a job. And so it's like You're earning nothing, you pay nothing. You're in the program, you get all this support, and you receive a stipend of about 30K. And then when you're done, you get your salary goes up to about 150K net of your loan repayment from the very beginning. So to answer your question, we pick because it is effectively credit. We're effectively investing in them on the premise that they will do well enough to pay back. Then selection is purely on merit and really on them demonstrating the fact that they can learn and cope with intensity, but also that they've demonstrated integrity sort of in their history.
Interesting. So I'm wondering, what if the person finishes the program and they don't get a job after, and now they have a loan? What is your rate of placement, employment placement after the program, from with your Deca devs, that's what you call them.
Yeah.
Yes, your Deca devs, when they finish,
Yeah.
how many of them have gotten jobs, or what percentage?
Yeah, so I think this was the idea. What seemed really counterintuitive and was problematic for many people when we were starting the program was just this idea of lending money to people without a guarantee. When I say problematic for people, I mean all the stakeholders, the lenders, the candidates, the aspiring decadents themselves, because like the total loan is 3 million naira. For many people, that's like more than they and sometimes their family members have ever borrowed or seen even at one time. So the idea that they take this on and set on this journey without the absolute assurance. But I have been in the tech industry for more than 20 years, and I understand like two things about about the skills, software engineering skills. One is that it's truly transformational. Like it is, when I say transformational, I mean it's transformational for the trajectory of someone's life. Whoever can be a software engineer, it's a complete game changer in terms of the productivity. And just to say a bit more about that, like if you think about value creation in the world over the last 30 years, is the biggest driver of that is software engineering. So it used to be that like to build a company worth $10 million, you needed $8 million of capital and infrastructure and a bunch of stuff. But a software engineer can build a $10 million company in 6 months if they have the right idea and by themselves. I know this from my own personal experience as a 22-year-old. I built software, founded a company that became, that type of valuation with a bunch of, with 5 guys. So that's number one, is that I know that given the global demand for software engineering talent and the way the world is going, that if you produce people that are good software engineers, you have created value. It's just like worrying about in Nigeria now, worrying about if I produce petrol, will I be able to sell it, right? Or like if many people were not sure about gold, but you understand gold and you say, if I refine gold, what's the risk, right? I think the petrol analogy is maybe more interesting, which maybe we'll come back to later. So that's one, is that I know that we are that we're producing in the people. There's like a value add that I was sure about. And then the second was really had to do with like integrity. And my experience also from having not observing from far, but investing in people, in young, brilliant Nigerians, have demonstrated to me that if you find the right people, that they will be faithful, right? That they will demonstrate integrity. Before this company, I had built tech companies where I always hired really young people and trusted them. I remember my first company, we expanded into 5 African countries at the same time, like in the same quarter, like built up new operations. And the people who led each of those operations all of them were probably under the age of 25. They had worked with me in like MTech in Nigeria, and we sent each of them out. You know, there wasn't money transfer. There was a lot of. It wasn't the way things are now. So we sent each of them out with like a bag of, $100,000 to go to these countries and build out an operation. And all of them built market leading operations. Then I had done like a lot of invested in like early stage startups, like the Jobberman guys when I started investing in them were in university. So anyway, so I had a lot of evidence that there are people of sort of exceptional potential that also have exceptional character. And so those are the two things that convinced me. Now we have 100% performance. Like our banking partners, super impressed. The only other person that believed in the first instance was almost, I think, like maybe a bit of not of a bank CEO, the CEO of Sterling Bank, who heard I was pitching like to the bankers committee, and he heard what I was doing, and he reached out to me and said, "Look, I'll do it." It was my first time of meeting him. By then, I had funded the first cohort, and he put the bank behind it, and I don't quite get, I've told you why I believed. I don't quite get why he believed, so he also believed, and so they are very happy because we have 100% placement rate after 6 months of graduation. That's within 6 months of graduation. So everybody, quite amazing stats, right? Like everybody who comes into Decagon finishes Decagon. We've had basically everybody that starts finishes, which is very unusual. Number one. Number two, everybody who finishes within 6 months gets a job. That's number two. Number three, everybody who gets a job pays their loan.
I'm reeling with the stats. Those are some really amazing statistics. And it sounds a little bit different from what I hear when I speak to other entrepreneurs. I mean, you've mentioned that in your previous, the business that you started prior to this, MTech, you sent out about 5 under 25-year-olds with about $100,000 to other African countries, and they excelled. And you seem to have a lot of faith in the young Nigerians and seem to have that faith proved right. But I'm wondering, is there something special about your selection process? Is there something you're doing that others are not doing? Please tell me, how do you pick the right people? I mean, you talked about very strict selection criteria for Decagon, but then you probably didn't have that when you had your previous company. So what is it? What is it that you do?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that, if I think about like in MTech days, we were pioneering company, very young, trying to build. So what we did was like, we built the first mobile internet service in Nigeria in partnership with like what is now the largest telco, MTN, launched that service. So email, and like first time people accessed email in Nigeria was myself and these bunch of guys and girls. We also did a lot of first SMS to TV, first mobile banking in Nigeria, for a bunch of stuff, right? So I used to look for people who were super smart and sort of fearless. By fearless, I mean, what we're looking for specifically was that have people done something exceptional in their history? Because we wanted to do things that nobody had done. So you needed people who were doing things that maybe they hadn't seen anybody do, or that were just sort of bold or whatever, right? And so this used to be the biggest criteria in us, like choosing who to, and I would spend a lot of time looking for those kind of people. So it could be like, okay, that when somebody was young, they won a poetry competition, or they launched a magazine in their university, or all kinds of things. Like there's a guy, and sometimes then eventually, like the first sort of people would be collecting those kind of people. When they would go somewhere, there was a time like some of my guys were at MTN, and they met a guy who was there pitching MTN on the idea of um, some scheme, right? Some fancy scheme thing that was crazy and they to get out. But they listened to him and they're like, man, this guy's crazy like us. So let's go and tell CN. And that's how we had him. And he, that guy, Manny, became like, one of our most valuable leaders. So that's what we were looking for. And I think that so the combination of like their history of exceptional achievement, combined with the culture when they came in, I think that history of exceptional achievement probably correlates with character. It's not like we're particularly looking for, by character, I mean like values. People who don't cheat, who don't, who are driven and, fair. So it's not like we were explicitly thinking about that or looking for that. But in retrospect, I think that, because like doing great things is hard, and people who, like, why do you even want to bother doing something great that is hard? You don't have to. Like, nobody's begging you, nobody's forcing you. So the kind of person that wants to do great things that are hard would not be fulfilled by cheating, I think, if I look at it in retrospect. And so I think that is something that we built on, that worked. And then I think when you bring them into a culture and they see other smart people that are that way, and that build a very strong relationship. We were very young at the time, so we were always there. It's almost like we're living together, right? Because we're always there together. So I think that builds, and I think that's a bit sort of replicated at Decagon, because like in Decagon they live together. I wonder if like it was fully distributed, like whether we will have the same kind of loan repayments. Like programs in America and other places that do this have good performance. Like typically like 80% of the people finish, 80% of the people who finish pay. And so I think like the tight community element of it is also influencing them, right? Like if we're a bunch of friends and 8 of us came in and 8 of us lives are changed through this process, and 7 people or 6 people think, of course the thing to do is to pay and keep the door open for the next person. Like the 1 or 2 people who are thinking not to might think, well, maybe I should just go along. So that's sort of my thinking around it.
Interesting. Why did you choose this line of business? I know you've talked about technology being the biggest, well, one of the fastest way to create value. But you could have decided to create value for yourself, which you have done in past businesses. Why Decagon now?
Yeah, so why Decagon and why now? So I think about like, well, specifically, let me say how I started Decagon specifically. I started Decagon as part of the Stanford Seed program, actually, the transformation plan. So I got into the Stanford Seed program. I was running a business called Level 5 Lab. And Level 5 Lab was a venture builder, early stage investor. Maybe I should go back very quickly, right? So, I talked about MTech. MTech was my first company. I started it like a year after college. I started MTech with the goal of like democratizing access to the internet, to help like make the internet available to like young people and so on and so forth. And I did that because I discovered the internet and computer science as a student at university in America, 1996 to 2000, when people first started building tech startups in Silicon Valley, and a young person, 2 or 3 young people from, China or India or Japan will come to America. They're immigrants, they'll build it, and they'll create a company that solves a big problem and transform their life, transform their community. So I was like, we need this in Nigeria. Like, we have to take this to Nigeria. That if we take this to Nigeria, the combination of sort of computer science, the ability to build software, the internet, like what it brings, and then the big problems, right? That we would really allow like exceptional young people to solve big problems and have transformational impact. So that was why I came to build MTech. And so that was the first sort of journey, right? Like this, then having done that, and having had some measure of success with MTech, I then thought, why don't I try and replicate that? Try and have more scale, right? Try to scale. Okay, I'd done one company. We got 150 employees in like 6 countries. So 150 people, jobs created, right? But why not scale that? So I then created L5, which was trying to replicate myself as a founder. So investing in founding teams. So that's when we did Jobberman, Checky, a bunch of other startups, right? We invested in like Gokada, Bamboo, Camdora, a bunch of startups. So we got into Stanford Seed Transformation Program as L5. That's venture builder, early stage company. And in Stanford Seed was also the time when I was getting towards the age of 40 and just thinking about my life and the scale of impact. And when I look back at what we had done, I felt that we had had some success, but not the scale that I had originally envisioned when, as a 22-year-old, I was moving back to Nigeria to start that company. We had created maybe 1,000 jobs across all these businesses. We had made some good financial returns, but it just wasn't the kind of transformational impact that I knew was possible with the combination of internet and computer science and smart people. And so during the Stanford Seed, our transformation plan was basically Decagon. Was basically the idea that if we can move from investing in companies to investing in people directly, we can have, when you invest in startups, you typically have a 1 in 10, 2 in 10, 3 in 10 hit rate. And, it's sort of moving like 5-year cycles, 5 to 7 year cycles of invest, focus, get return, right? But invest in people, instead of 1 in 10 or 2 in 10, is like 10 in 10, 9 in 10. And so Decagon is really like, as I was turning 40, is really for me like a 10-year commitment. That's why it's a decade. And also because many of the investors were like, are you sure you really stay, Chika? You do a lot of things. So it's a 10-year commitment for me to like apply myself, my experience, my network, whatever, to this mission or goal that really what I've wanted from like when I first started out, to use the opportunity, just sort of the time and chance that there is this phenomenon called tech, called the internet, which I am very experienced and very sort of have a lot of history and capability in, that happens to be the main driver of economic transformation and like the door to opportunity in the whole world. There happens to be globally a shortage of talent, of human beings, which is what, if anything, which is what Nigerians have. So I thought I must commit myself to it because it will have the larger scale of impact and that it would also have a good financial return.
So you're very impact driven, actually, from what I can hear. Also, I was just thinking about how you started these businesses. Even, the MTech, you have Decagon, the L5 Lab. How do you fund it? How do you just, because I'm asking this question because a lot of people have dreams. They want to impact, they want to grow, they want to scale, but they don't have an idea of where they can get the money from. And that puts a great limitation on a lot of people's dreams. And I've watched you over the years have these dreams and just go out and do it. Do you have, like a pot of gold somewhere? You need to let me know.
It's interesting that you said pot of gold. You know what I think?
Why?
So we're siblings, so we have the same father. And I think that there's a specific incident that I remember that I think made me think like what I need to do things will always be there. I think, right? It's funny. I don't know if it's funny. I think it's funny. We were like eating I was probably 8 or 9, having Sunday lunch, eating rice, and I was eating, taking more. And my dad was like, our dad, Okide, was like, yeah, Chika, you know that no matter what happens in this world, I will always be able to provide rice for you. You don't have to finish. This rice is not going anywhere. There's always more. For me, that was mind blowing. I just never thought about it that this is something that is very important to me, that fuels me, because that is a surplus. So I think it's funny, right? Because I got closer to my dad more in my late teens when I came back to Nigeria. was when he and I got quite close. But that incident is just one thing that just in my mind, I just the idea that there is abundance, that there is surplus, there's like abundance to fund or to do the things that I would. It's not very deep, right? It's not very like profound, but it's just, I think, so my point is that, you say pot, right? There's a pot, he was saying there's a pot, there's always a pot of rice. There's
always rice, right?
There's always, yes. So I think that I believe, like when there's like a vision or something, I think like I have a vision, I believe that it will happen. And I believe that the help to make it happen will come. Now, as I've getting more experienced and so on, I'm now learning that, and it has always happened, and without necessarily a lot of, it has always come. Like by the time I speak to one or two people, they get on board, or one way or another, I've gotten the support. But now I'm learning that I have to be a bit more structured around fundraising. Fundraising is a very important, really critical component of building big things. And I think because it has always sort of happened, I think over the years, even though I became like a VC before I started Decagon, like a partner in a proper VC firm. Venture capital firm. So I understand like fundraising and all that stuff, but I think like I always was not structured around fundraising. And I think now, like, if I look back, I think maybe actually some of my business could have been much bigger. And I think Decagon actually could have grown much faster. Decagon has been in the last 4 years, gotten to, we've done the numbers that we've done. We've produced like talent. We're like in Nigeria and in America. We have customers in the US. We have customers. So we've done very well so far. But we've raised very little capital relative to other players, and we built it at a time when there was like a lot of capital chasing value in Nigeria. But we've only raised so far $2.5 million of equity, and businesses at our revenue level typically have gotten there with about $10 million. So the point I'm trying to make is that we could have gone further by now, and we should have gone further, because our lack of, even though we've done a lot and we've done what other people haven't done, but that we're only at 1,000 when 100,000 people have applied, or when 1 million people are unemployed. If we had gone further with capital, it could be 5,000 people by now. Nigeria could already be on the map as being like one of the main sources of like world-class talent. And so, funding has come, but I know that I have to be more structured and invest in fundraising. It's a capability like marketing, it's a capability like sales, like product development, cultivating investors, and being able to bring in capital quickly is a competitive advantage, actually. So it's something I'm working on.
I see. So what you're saying is, over the years, you've learned that you need to be more intentional with fundraising, and that includes marketing, product development. What were the other things?
No, it's not that it includes it.
Okay.
It is a capability.
I understand. Yeah. So just as those things are important,
Yes.
This is also as important if you want to grow and scale really fast.
Exactly. Because in a way, like cash is like capital, is like, think of it as like fuel. If you're going on a journey, you need the driver, the car, the tires, you also need fuel.
True.
And so having fuel and even having enough, like even backup in case, you run out, in case there's like scarcity, is an advantage that I think I may have taken a bit for granted. And given the size of our mission, then I think it's something I want to get much better at.
Okay, so I'm thinking about a few things. One of them is courage is one of the things that you look for in people that you engage or you partner with or you hire, which means it's also a quality that you have. Then faith. you seem to have a lot of faith, because you've talked about having an abundant mentality, not to think, yeah, that's it, over scarcity. Believing that, okay, I just have this dream, and if I walk towards it, there'll be provision. That's what you're saying, isn't it? Okay, that's very interesting. So I just, now I'm thinking, people who have been challenged in this way, who have a scarce mentality, scarcity thinking, maybe through experience, because I'm thinking that if you started the first time and things worked well, then you believe and your faith keeps growing. What would you say, like, what are the things you think that you might have done that might have also made you successful at that time, and apart from having the faith? Because some people, I think, might have had a bit of faith and they've gone out and they didn't succeed. And so they think the capital is not out there, but you've tried it and it's worked. Do you have thoughts on maybe what you might have done that's a little different from someone else that might give that competitive advantage to make you attractive to those, the funding for those opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. Well, when I look back, and again, I was quite an active investor. And so I think about, what do I look for? And then I think about, okay, how did that play out for me? In MTech, my first company, like I said, I was 22 years, just here out of school, didn't have...
You were 22, right?
I was 22 when I started. I didn't have a day. I didn't do a lot of business plan development, right? But, people invest in a big opportunity driven by people that they trust. That they trust that those people can execute on that opportunity. Whether they are structured or not. Good investors who know what they are doing invest in a big opportunity and a good team that they think can execute on that opportunity. So that's what, one way or another, has. Then the last thing is like being visible to the good investor, right? So a good investor may not know about the opportunity and may not know about you. So you have to bring the three things coming together. An investor who is somebody who has money that wants more money. And also maybe sometimes wants to solve a particular problem, has the money to solve it, and wants some money back, right? That's investor. Then the opportunity, and then the good team. Bring those three things together, you're
on your way.
Yeah. So the first thing is like, I had with MTech, it was a great opportunity, right? Like make internet available, build value-added services for the telco industry. With L5, same thing, good opportunities. Jobberman, job board helps make people finding jobs more efficient. Checky help make people sell, which is not auto check, help people sell cars more easily. Decagon, help take people that are unemployed, that are super smart and whose lives would have been unfulfilled or let's say, would not have maximized their potential, and help them blow, right? These are great businesses. Then the next is be, sort of great, right? And I think again, I wasn't always super structured about it, but there are people, this is where the privilege of, standing on my parents' shoulders and the social network I was born into. My brother-in-law, Chris Ubosi, the founder of BTFM, was the sort of anchor investor in MTech, right? And he saw me. How did he see me? Because he was married to my sister, and he was hearing about my stories about when I was in school. It's not everybody that would give their wife's younger brother money. In fact, quite the opposite, right? Most people would not want to invest in their wife's younger brother if they're a foolish person. But I think, Chris perhaps heard that I was a serious kid, and I had a great college career. I was funded a campus ministry and done quite a bit of cool things. And then, so he believed in me, and then he went and brought his friends to invest, right? Because he thought I was good, and he thought it was a good opportunity. And then, he had money and they had money. So that has happened repeatedly, and I think people can make that. So for me, in that first time, I didn't do the work to find them.
Okay.
But I think people can do the work to find them. That's where marketing comes in, from an investing standpoint, from a founder standpoint, is being able to connect to the investor, having the investor know you, and be aware of the opportunity and the you that you are great. But you have to be great. If you're not great, you are a fraud, right? Yeah. So, and they will investigate and they will find out you're a fraud.
Oh, wow. Wow, lots to unpack. What challenges have you had?
A lot.
Okay, what are the top ones? Would you say maybe top 3 challenges that you've had?
I think honestly, the most consistent challenge I've had has been, I think, my lead. I think has been me. My sort of just personal goals, personal like lead, right? Like that's personal like limits, like this, like what do I want to achieve? And then how do I organize myself and my life and all the other activities around me to achieve that? I think that has been the biggest challenge. I think this is a challenge of the young founder. And I think I was reading recently that like most of the, even now, you think of like tech founders and you think like young people, but actually, even in America, like disproportionately, the founders of the most successful tech companies are like in their 40s. Because, it's 20, around, when in tech, around 24, it actually was tough in the first few years. But around 25, we started being very successful and making a lot of money. And I think like for a 25-year-old to have had to get that success, the nature of our services was such that we were making money every month. Even if I chilled for a month, the money will still come. Like organizing myself to set greater goals. When when there was no money that we may not pay salary or that the thing might fail, it was maybe easier to be really driven, really disciplined, really motivated, and so on. But when we became successful, I think it was harder. And then there's a lot of distractions, people inviting you here and there, and so on and so forth. So I think that that for me, that has been the biggest challenge. And I still consider that to be my biggest challenge now. Like now at Decagon, we're successful. I'm very, the mission is huge. The opportunity, like the need is huge. It's like even more, I see it as even more important than Nigeria. Things have been challenging for Nigeria. So I still see myself in Decagon as we might fail. We're not going to fail, but that we may not fulfill our mission. Like if we only produce 3,000 software engineers, we're not going to change Nigeria unless we produce get into the tens of thousands of world-class software engineers. Then we can change Nigeria. And I believe that I'm clear that just this company alone, if it executes to the maximum of its potential, alone can change the country. So that I hope will set a high enough ceiling, a high enough goal to keep me super motivated, driven, disciplined, not distracted. People have already started looking for us all everywhere, actually, but like focused, right? So for me, that's number one. I think then relatedly is team, right? The other set of people that would, the same thing, right? The other set of people that would rise to the level, that would not get distracted, that would not start fighting about how we sharing the money and the fact that, it's funny, like if you're not paying anybody, everybody will love themselves in the suffering. As in, we're suffering together. We're struggling together. There's no money. But now when money starts coming and things like that, now there are a lot of things, a lot of risks come and a lot of waste of traction. That's of the focused collaboration of shared mind working together. A lot of things can pull that apart when there starts to be abundance. Leading people, motivating them. So the team, right? I think is a second. And I think really those two, as far as I'm concerned, are far more important than everything else. There's a lot of other things that are challenges, Nigeria. There's a lot of operating problems in Nigeria. But I think getting this number one, getting myself right, and then my leadership team also them getting themselves, or me and them getting ourselves together, I think there'll be no problem.
No limits.
No limits.
Oh, cool. I like that. No limits. So I want to ask a question. What would you advise? First of all, I think you've already alluded to that, but in clear terms, 22-year-old Chika, when you started the business, if you could go back and tell Chika a thing or two or three, what would you tell Chika?
For sure. I think number one is that choice of strategy, right? Which is really choice of business really matters. I think, so what I mean by that is that I think like, given that you the founder, you're a given, right? Like you are who you are, right? So let's put that aside. The next most important thing is what business you choose to do. Because I've seen a lot of people work very, very hard in one business and like only see a little bit of success. And you see people like just work hard in another business and they get a huge return. Businesses are different and they are different. There's like, there is, it's like, think about it like you're a mountain climber and you want to climb, like the prize is climbing the highest mountain. Like if you don't pay enough attention to which mountain should I choose to climb, right? Let's say you don't look and compare all the mountains, because on the ground level, all the mountains look the same. If you just say the mountain that's nearest to you is the mountain you're going to climb, that's a very expensive decision as you start climbing it, because the mountain is fixed, right? Like some mountains are this and some mountains are this, some mountains are this. And if you choose a mountain that is this, that's your limit. And so people don't understand that. Young people generally don't understand this particular thing, which is why strategy is such a big thing. Many people don't understand what strategy, like corporate strategy, really means. Corporate strategy is really, what business should I do? And that should be driven by a few things, like how big is the market? What is the structure of the market? What that means is that, is there a way to win in that business? Meaning by win, meaning win and defend, right? Like win sustainably. So if you think about telco, for example, if you think about myself and the telco that was my partner, MTN, right? Let's imagine that we work the same. Well, MTN is regulated. It's a business that uses technology to acquire subscribers, and those subscribers stay on. The revenue, it's just a completely different. Of course, the capital was very different, but I'm just saying the nature of the business is such that when we, as a supplier to them, are successful, there's ways we can be successful, don't get me wrong, but those businesses it's not, if you look at businesses, right, like the people who had money to invest in MTN versus in telcos versus even banks, right, at that time, those who chose to invest in telcos will be better. Those who chose to start a telco will be better off, because there's only 4 telcos. There was 100 and something banks. The telco has network effects. There are a bunch of things around that, right? I can talk about this for a long time, and it's a complex thing. So all I will say is, it's not trivial. It's not what your passion is. Not even in an area of passion. There's a way to structure. There's a way to play. There are different ways to play in an area of passion. I'll give you an example. Checky, the cars platform that we built. You can be a car seller, and because you love cars. You can be a car cleaner because you love cars. You can be a car delivery or whatever. Or you can build the platform where other people buy and sell cars and introduce financing and all that stuff. And that is $1 billion opportunity. Whereas you being a car seller is not. So if you have the opportunity to choose, or if you're going to talk to investors about, and this affects your ability to raise capital and all that stuff. So I spend a lot of time on it because I think it's super important. Like choice of business. Save people pain, years, it's just super important. So that'll be number one. Number two is what to do, is like thinking carefully about managing success. I've shared a bit about struggling with it. People don't understand, or I did not understand how like the challenge of success. And you're blinded by it because it's fun because you go like, I have this dream and you're really excited and really passionate, and then that fuels you. And then if you're lucky and you have grace, then you get the support, you get the capital, you get the opportunity to do the thing, find the team, and then you go into like struggle, like survival, like battle, and it's tough, right? And that you're driven, right? And you think that's like, okay, and then if you win, nobody thinks about, like, I don't hardly see any books about that. I'm an avid reader, never saw any books about that, right? But that is, there's a reason why there are so many people that have one house or like one company that makes 100 million naira or 200 million. Like there's thousands of people, even in Nigeria. Like all the houses in Nigeria are owned by people that are like dollar millionaires. So there's probably $10,000 millionaire, maybe $50,000 millionaires in Nigeria. But there's probably only like $10 billionaires. So the ratio is very, very different. And I believe that the difference is managing of success. And many of the people who become dollar millionaires go back down, right? So that, like, just thinking about like what it takes to manage success, like thinking about how to engineer more ambition, thinking about how to protect oneself from the distractions,
complacency.
the complacency. Stanford Seed really helped me in the sense that one of the problems that I think I had is that I never cared about money. So it wasn't a driver for me. It wasn't like, I almost like thought like it's almost like not really noble to like care so much about money. And also not really necessarily so noble to be like, I didn't have like clarity on a desire to be very big, like to build like a multi-billion-dollar business. I just started MTech to just help people get joy. And I was helping the people and all that stuff. And everything I was doing was just, I like loved the founders and like a lot of my business journey. When I look back, like the other thing is like, I really like, for me, business has been like a lot about, this is going to sound strange, a lot about love, right? A lot about like the relationship of like loving people and like in building relationships of love and so on and so forth, right? So, if you think about that, I get that. I have gotten that. That need was met in MTech, was met with the Jobberman guys. We're like very close friends, like till now. So it has, that part of was why I was doing business. But Stanford Seed really helped me understand like the responsibility to your nation and to your generation as a founder that has some success. Because companies can be, or typically world over, the engine of transformation of a country. And so, it struck me that like if I continued growing the way I was growing at the beginning of MTech or in MTech days, don't get me wrong, I've been consistently successful. But if I had built $1 billion business instead of $1 million business, by the time I was 30, I had built $1 billion business, right? And then if by the 5 years later I was like a multi-billion-dollar business, like Nigeria will be different. Like I'll be employing 100,000 people. Those 100,000 people would all believe, they will all be looking at me, their lives will be different. Maybe some of the kidnapping that's going on will not be happening. Like maybe people respecting Nigerians more outside. Like think about it, like we respect Koreans. We respect Chinese people. A big part of that, it wasn't always that way, like when we were small, right? There's a time that people didn't even respect Japanese people, like in the world, right? But we're using LG and Samsung, we respect Korea. Of course we respect them because if their corporations have done things that transform the image of how people see themselves, how the Koreans see themselves, and how people see Koreans. So that the mission to go further is what I would encourage, I would tell 22-year-old Chika earlier, Oga, see, this, you are here for something. That thing is, yes, it's for love, it's for helping people and all that stuff. But you're also one of the ones that you're like a champion for your nation. You're one of the ones that has been given like they say, go and play for Nigeria. And you reach there, you forget that you're playing for Nigeria. let's say you like doing a game, you go there and start doing Torus. That's not what you're here for. You're here to play for Nigeria so that Nigeria, the whole country can jubilate.
Yes.
So, given the privilege and the opportunities that I've had, or given the privilege and opportunities that 22-year-old Chika will have, I would say, okay, you are here for Nigeria. Think how you can go big, fast, so that when they are deciding, like a lot of investment in Nigerian tech now is foreign. When they are deciding things, they will call you, then you talk for Nigeria, you talk for your people, you talk for black people across the world. Get there faster, earlier, and that there is a exponential return, like the way life is over time. Returns are exponential. Like what I can do now is not what I can, like from when I started Decagon to now, what I can do, who I can talk to, the problems I can solve, is not twice as big as last year. It's like 10 times as big. Like if you think about billionaires in Nigeria, right? Like, or you think I'm Bill Gates, the problems he can solve for the world is not proportional. It is exponential and exponential over time.
Yes.
So be serious earlier, get big faster, so that you can solve problems at exponential scale faster. And get help. Build relationships to help you.
Build relationships to help you. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes. One of my mentors, Ndidi Muneli, who I know is your friend, has always been very intentional about this. It's something I don't think I modeled it well early enough. But when she wants to do something, she thinks about, it's not that she told me, but this is my observation, right? She thinks about who she needs that can help her in the thing. She does,
yes.
And then because what she's doing makes sense. So she'll go and tell them this is what we're doing, and she'll be their friend and, just cultivate the relationship. And they will help her to be successful. And she'll be happy, they'll be happy. So she's intentional about it. Because I think it's partly humility that brings that. Like you want to do something, like thinking about the fact that can't do this thing by yourself. Or even if you can do it by yourself, it will be easier if you get help. So investing a little bit of your time into cultivating the relationship. By cultivating, it means reaching out to the people, being there, telling them things, investing in their life and investing in your life around the goal. When you do that, I talk about the Decagon story, and I talk about Sterling Bank and the CEO and all that stuff, and them. Like we probably could not, like I put my money to start, I did the first cohort, but my money was not unlimited. So we probably could not have done that without that relationship. The governor of Edo State reached out randomly and pursued me so that we can build out a campus in Edo. And now, he and I have built a relationship. It's not like I necessarily cultivated. That's him actually cultivating a relationship to help him fulfill his goal. Other states have said, other states want to create jobs and all that stuff, but they may not have done it the way he has done it. So you see that people who are very successful, like think about like, who do I need? And invest time in building those relationships. Not just, I've said it now in terms of taking the business further, but I think also in terms of the other challenges I've said. I think if I, for example, had cultivated a relationship with like a mentor, like in my earlier years, that really understood all these things I've said now, they would have told me. They would have said, see, you have a lot of privilege, you have a lot of opportunity, leave distractions, this is who you are. They would have challenged me. I think like I can trace like big spurts, like change spurts to connecting to people. So that's it. I think like stuff is hard. And I don't think people are really supposed to. Entrepreneurship is very, very hard. For most of my career, I've been like a solo founder in a way, like the solo leader. So super lonely, super hard, really despairing, and like having friends or people intentionally. Otherwise, things can be very difficult.
So that intentionality of cultivating relationships, you've said a lot to unpack the responsibility, learning how to manage success properly, and understanding that you have a responsibility to be the best you can be and go as far as you can go, so that you open the way and you're a representative for others. I think that's really that's a lot to unpack, and very inspiring. you've said the next 10 years, not 10 years, you started 4
4
years ago. So the next 6 years, you're devoted and committed to Decagon, which is why it's at 10 years, and you want to do about 10,000. You didn't say that, but I kind of got that.
Yeah,
Software.
we've sort of passed that. Like, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, software engineers. What do you see beyond that for you?
Yeah.
If you can see that far.
Yeah, I don't yet know.
Okay.
I don't yet know. I think that a part of the reason why is like because, you know, I'm really committed to this company being like very successful, and so it's just like being a child in the village and say making the plan of what you will do when you are a champion in Lagos. You don't know anything about what Lagos is like. I don't yet the level that we're going to get to with Decagon, sort of the opportunities and the challenges and so on, that we will see are not clear to me.
You've
So
got to get there
we've
first.
got to get there so that we
I
now
see.
know. Yeah.
Wow. So now you have a vision that's bigger, like farther than you can see, and you have to,
Yeah.
I guess, get to the top of that mountain
Yes, exactly.
before you can see what's on the other side.
Exactly.
Oh, Chika, thank you. I've been so inspired. See, even though we're siblings, every time we have these conversations, I learn a lot. And it's very interesting when I listen to entrepreneurs just to hear how they think and the depth and the thought process. I'm really grateful for your generosity in sharing and your openness, just telling us like it is. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your coming on the Seed Diaries. Thank you so much for watching the Seed Diaries. Please don't forget, subscribe, follow us, and like. These stories are for your benefit. Thank you for following the Seed Diaries.
We believe in community.